Okay, so it is 12:30 on the dot, so we are going to get started here today. And just some best practices, I shared this in our notes in the chat. Please make sure you do stay muted during this webinar. Also, we recommend you turning off video if you do have that capacity. Just make sure to turn it off just to help us with the connectivity. And then I encourage anyone to put this as a full screen, but just make sure that you do have access to chat, as we will be having some interaction throughout this webinar today. If you haven't already, feel free to introduce yourself in chat. Let us know who you are, what you're working on specifically, and then where you're watching that from. So for me, I am coming all the way from Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm excited to share today what we have going on. So with that, we're just going to get started. Throughout this whole presentation, do feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we will go back to those later. All right, so in the next hour, my goal today is really to help you go over what the basics are before you ever write a word of copy. Second, it's really to go over the copyright blueprint and going through, there's really 5 questions to answer when you are writing copy. And then thirdly, it's how to actually structure your copywriting to get a direct response in your marketing efforts. Ultimately, this whole series, the Start Something series, is to help you become a more effective marketer of your business or your idea, or even if you're coming online today and you work for a startup, a business, or organization, it is to help you as well. So today's webinar, it's really focused on the copy fundamentals, and there are a lot of tactical tools and tips that are punched in. So I would really encourage all of you, particularly for this workshop, to find pen and paper, as there's going to be a lot of different content to really write down. So to get started, who I am, if you did not join me for the last one, I did a webinar on the marketing fundamentals, but who I am, my name is Diana Wright. I work at the Papa John Center for Entrepreneurship, and this photo really speaks to how I've been lucky since the age of 10. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I've gotten the lucky chance to work in and outside of their businesses. And so this photo here, it was taken at the Red Geranium, which is my father's business. It's located in Clear Lake, Iowa, just on the corner of Main Street. And it is a floral and home decor gift shop. So from the early age, I was doing the grunt work. I was sweeping the shop floor. I was learning behind the counters and really interacting with customers, taking different phone orders as well. And then lastly, my favorite, which was counting the money. So I no longer had to pretend and play Monopoly. I was actually counting money and learning how that impacted my family, but even the family business. And so my passion is really to help grow and help businesses in Iowa. And I believe today what we're talking about around copywriting, that words really do matter. And so it's why I studied marketing, advertising at Iowa State. And I specifically went out and learned copywriting from Dan Kennedy, which I will mention a lot throughout this presentation. I happen to be fortunate where I can work at an entrepreneurship center and also be entrepreneurial. So I do have a side business where I help write copy for a number of different businesses and even helping with just different marketing efforts. So first today, what I want to talk about is what copywriting is not. So if you're joining us today, I hope you're not under the impression that we are talking about copyright protection. And that is what you see on just the right side of the screen here. So there's 2 big differences between copywriting and copyrights. So copyright is the right under the law, just what it sounds like. And really it protects an author's original expression of their work. So this might be an artist who has created a song. They would copyright that and they would protect that. And anytime that you're talking about copyrights, you are speaking to a lawyer. So particularly this is an intellectual property lawyer. Anytime you want to learn how can I protect my copyrights. But today the workshop that we're covering is copywriting. So I'm a writer, so I write copy. And copy really is this easy form of expression that it can promote a person, it can promote a business, it can promote your own opinion, or even an idea. And so when you're thinking about copywriting, if you ever need help, you would specifically speak to a writer, a copywriter, to help you with your website, with your blog. So I wanted to make sure that we go over the difference and that you guys know what we are talking about today. Copywriting in a nutshell is how you sell things with words. So one of my favorite series that I've watched is Mad Men, and probably a lot of fans out there too. And my favorite character is Peggy Olson. So she is originally Don's secretary, and Don is, when you look at this photo, he's the person just on the left. And he's kind of Mr. Admin. And Peggy starts just being his secretary, but later she gets promoted in the series as a copywriter. And so here is kind of a photo back in the 60s on Madison Avenue where this whole series takes place. It just shows her trying to sell things with words. So I just kind of wanted to note that for fun. So before you ever write a word of copy, I want to talk about what the basics are. And specifically, you need to know three things. You need to know your objective, you need to know your target audience, and then you need to know your product or service, essentially what your business does. And so as an entrepreneur, you can wear a lot of different hats. And one of those hats, if you have not found out already, is marketing. And so these three things are really important to know before you ever write a word of copy. I also believe if you are a copywriter and if you work with other clients, you have to know these three things just as well or even better because it's not your own business. So we're going to go into each of those three things. So first off, you need to know what your objective is. So before you start writing copy, you need to understand, what am I trying to accomplish and what is the response you are trying to obtain? So this is your ability either to, perhaps you want to sell something. So your objective is to sell. It's to get someone to buy something. It might also be where you actually just want to engage your reader, your audience. So they, send their information for something that you give them for free. Or thirdly, it might just be to sign up for your mailing list. So these are really important to know as you're thinking about what is the objective of what I'm trying to do. Secondly, it's to know your target audience. So who are you trying to seek and change? We talked a lot about this in the marketing fundamentals, but just remember that you are trying to change someone versus everyone. And so this is where you would want to either create an avatar or revisit your star avatar and really get into their headspace, where your customer is at. So the more that you can spend on your target audience, the better it's going to pay off as you're actually writing copy. So some of the questions as regards to their headspace: what keeps them up at night? What are they afraid of? What do they secretly desire most? Is there any built-in bias to the way they make decisions? And do they have their own language? And that last question, it kind of sounds funny, but what we tell ourselves internally can be very different than what we actually say and how we talk to our friends. So really keep those questions in mind when you're trying to understand and know who is your target audience. And the third piece here is know your product or service. So as an entrepreneur, that might kind of sound funny and might come across, well, shouldn't I already know what I'm doing? But a lot of times when I talk to entrepreneurs or when they're first starting out, they can't really describe what it is they do. So this is really important as an entrepreneur, but also even if you're working with entrepreneurs, you need to know exactly what is the product or service, why was it developed, why was it created, and then where does it originate? Where did the idea come from? Where did the business come from? And then the last question there is, how is it made? So that's important. So if you have a product or even a service, how is it performed? And really uncovering all of these is really important. So I would kind of take the aspect of pretend that you own your product that you're selling today. Pretend that you just received a service. And that's really going to help you uncover in the mindset of your target market what your product is. So those are really just the basics before we get into actually writing. And so the good news is with writing and with copywriting, there is actually a blueprint. And in this blueprint, there's really 5 important questions to answer. And I'm going to walk you through these 5 questions. In these 5 questions of the blueprint, it's helpful to understand these are just 5 steps, and they're all in a form of question. And really how you answer these questions is going to directly affect your copy. So when I walk through these 5 questions, I don't want you guys to get creative yet. I want you to be able to just to answer these factually. And I understand today we don't have the time to pause 5 minutes for each one, but I would encourage you right now, write down these questions and then revisit this later. So with that first question of the copyright blueprint, what is the problem? And so this is, the 3 Ps that a lot of times in copywriting they teach. What is the pain? What is the problem? What is the predicament that your target audience is facing? And so this is why you really have to spend time identifying your target audience, because now it's your job to actually identify what is their problem. And with that, you have to diagnose the problem. So a lot of times people are unaware that they might even have this problem, this pain point. So it's your job to first diagnose that problem and don't jump right into the solution. A lot of times, copywriters and even just entrepreneurs in general, they want to talk about the solution because that's, to them a really exciting part. But make sure you actually spend time in the problem space. And this is just as important with the second aspect here is that your audience, they need to know that you understand them. So the more that you can let them know that, hey, I know you, I get that you have this problem, the better it is that they're going to actually trust you when they're reading your site, your website, your advertising. So that's really important. Second piece here is why hasn't the problem been solved? So this is where you actually kind of build anticipation of what it is you're actually going to reveal. But truly, you're going to identify what's the history of this problem, this predicament and pain. This is where you would write down the reasons why this problem continues to persist, why it's still lingering around, and why are they still stuck in this rut. Third question is what is possible? So this is where you're going to paint a picture. And a lot of times people can do this with some great storytelling aspects, but really what is life going to be like when this problem, this pain does not persist anymore? And so I do have an example in there that yes, you can simply say the pain in your lower back is going to disappear. But the second option is a little better, where you'll be able to engage in X activities you were unable to engage in because of your back pain. So, by any means, I don't think that's the best way to say that, but it gives you a different example of how you need to show them what it is that's actually possible. So the fourth piece of the copyright blueprint is what is different now? And this is where you actually have your chance to explain to them who you are, what your product is, and how you can actually help them. A lot of times, this is where copyright will actually go into the unique selling proposition. And that's really what's your competitive advantage, what sets you apart from everyone else. And so this part's really different, or this part is really important to make sure that it's included. Right. And number 5 is what should you do now? So it's basically state clearly what you want your prospect to do. And this is ultimately the call to action. So this might be sign up. This might be pick up the phone. This might be register, opt in, or the best thing yet, buy. So I'm going to go back. And so these are the 5 questions. And really, what you would do is you'd revisit this and make sure that you can answer all of these when you're first talking about your business, your product, or your service. Now what I want to do is actually use an example of some copy here. And so this is a print ad, and what I did here is you can likely see the ad itself. There's a lot of great creative aspects in this, but just specifically, I wanted to look at the actual words in the copy used. So you can quickly see there's a woman, she's appearing with her son, and the headline reads, "Does she or doesn't she? Hair color so natural, only her hairdresser knows for sure." So going back to those 5 questions that we use in the blueprint, I want to walk through with this example of what is actually included and where you can start to see this framework. So I'm going to read this just because I know I'm not at home with you guys. So the copy in the bottom half, it reads, "She has a fresh, young way of looking and of looking at things. Her naturalness, the way her hair sparkles and catches the light, its depth of color, as though she's found the secret of making time stand still. And in a way, she has, with Miss Clarell. It's so easy to keep hair color young and radiant, to keep gray from ever showing, and this is why more women use it than all the other hair colorings combined." So I will stop there, and I want to go through first, what is the problem? So in this ad, it quickly shows that the problem is that women, they don't want to have gray hair. And specifically, it really triggers this whole awareness of beauty and how women don't want to have to manage their hair, their color. They just want to be beautiful. They just want to be young. So that is directly the problem. Why hasn't this problem been solved? So in the ad, it's a little more subtle, but what they go to show is that most hair coloring products, they lack promise, and they also lack this dependable process. And so in that second paragraph, it actually gets more into that they've developed an automatic color timing, and it's dependable. And it just takes only minutes. So here's where how they actually answered why hasn't this problem been solved. The third question that we went over, so what is possible? There's a lot of what is possible. They do a great job with the creative, like that first sentence where it says she has a fresh, young way of looking. And then it even goes into, she knows this secret of making time stand still. That's a great expression of showing what is possible for this young woman and for young women everywhere. Fourth question is, what is different now? So finally, what Miss Clarell is coming in with this ad, they're saying that finally you can have natural looking hair color that no one even knows that you're using a hair coloring product. And lastly, the call to action, or what should we do now? In the copy, just at the bottom line, it says, so try Miss Clarell yourself today. So we kind of went through those 5 questions, and now we're going to dive into what is the copywriting structure. And there's this graphic here. It really shows this slide. And so you start with the headline, and then you go down the slide, and lastly, it is taken by action. So we're going to go into this. So the headline, and as you saw, even in the ad, does she or doesn't she? This is where you want to spend most of your time when you are developing copy. It is so important because the headline is actually what's going to take the reader to the next line, and it's really going to set up the whole copy of what you're trying to share. Just some tips is you don't want to have too lengthy of a headline. A lot of different people out there say no more than 17 words. And a lot of times your headline, it needs to stand out. And so we'll go through some other examples later on. The second piece in structure, as you're developing a email or whether it's an advertising campaign, is your subheader. So your subheader, it directly follows your header, and your subheader, it should be strong enough to actually be a headline. The subheader is also there just to keep the reader, the prospect, reading. So here is an example that I'm going to go through. This is an advertisement from Basecamp, and as you can see right away, wish granted. So that is the headline of this. And then the subheader is ever wish work was less work. The third piece I want to talk about is the body, and it's the offer. So going back to this ad, it's what we read in the middle there, where it says Basecamp combines discussions, tasks, files, schedules, and chat all in one place, making it easy to see what needs doing, where to actually find things, and what's going on. So you can clearly see this is the body, but it's also it's a little subtle. They have their offer in there as well. And then another really important piece of the actual slide is that call to action. That's where you go at the start, where there's a header, and then you go down the slide and you can actually drive what action you want your person to take. So make sure with your closing, your call to actions, you want to state clearly what it is you want your prospect to do. And you also need to answer this why now. You need to create some sort of urgency to get them to actually directly respond. Third component is credibility. So great ways to actually show why it is people trust you. So testimonials have been used a lot throughout different marketing and ad pieces, and they work. There's significant facts that you can use. There's case studies that are also related to your product or service. So if we take a look back at the Basecamp ad, what it is you're going to see is their call to action is very simple. So they have joined the 4,000 businesses that signed up last week. There is a box to enter your email address, and then there's a button that says start a free 30-day trial. So when we get to that credibility, I was talking about significant facts. You can see in that line, it says the joined 4,000 businesses that signed up last week. That is a significant fact to Basecamp's product and service. And then that call to action is very, very clear. It just says enter your email address and you're going to start a free trial of our software. A few other things to talk about in copy is there's a lot of different copy elements. And so there's bullets, there's font colors, font as well, and even white space. So when you see bullets, a lot of times it actually helps break out a lot of important information. These might be statistics, they might be facts, they might be details actually about your product or service. In actual copy, when it comes to font color, I always, go on the side of you should always probably choose the color black, and when in doubt, just go with black. I have seen headlines where it can be any other color, which is totally okay to do. But when you actually get to the body of the copy, you just want to make sure that your reader can actually read it. They're not squinting. You also have to, if you're writing anything for online copy, you need to make sure that there's nothing going on with the actual color and the screen. Font, I know Grayson, he talked a lot about this in our branding webinar. And font, the biggest rule of thumb is making sure that it's actually readable. You're not doing anything crazy or decorative as well. And then something I added, the last bullet there, is just to remember to include your name and your address and how people could actually get a hold of you. I have seen advertisements where they completely forgot, they have this great call to action, buy now, but then there's nowhere that you even know, well, who it is that I'm buying from, or who could I even contact? Like if I had a question, is there any sort of contact information? So just remember that you always have your contact information, your logo, as you're going to take them to that next step. So here's just a few examples. This is actually packaging, and I wanted to show this that copy doesn't just have to be on advertisements, or whether it's a landing page that you're creating, a video, but it can be directly on your packaging. And so here it's the RX bars. And what I love about this is that it is very simplistic by nature. And simplicity is kind of what they use, even in what stands out to them, what makes them different, is that they only use a few products or a few ingredients. And so their humor also is kind of noted in their, the 5th line down, it says no BS. So they are all about trust, and no BS here. We only have these 4 ingredients, and here it even says on the bar that it's a protein bar. So you know exactly what you're getting, and it's very simple here. Something I want to talk about with copy is that copy must inject emotion. So it's really important. Words are really important. They are electric, and I believe that they should be chosen for their actual emotional voltage that they can carry. So, there's a lot of different sources you can find, like what are rational words to use, what are more of the emotional words to use. When you are writing copy, and because it's copy, you're trying to use words to sell something, it has to be emotional, because how we actually, why people buy, it's emotion first, and then later on, they'll justify it with the logic. So an example here is in the red are the emotional words. In the gray, those are more of the rational words. And they're very simple. So instead of using learn more, you might do find out more. It's more inviting. The other example is the following are, it sounds very scientific, versus here are XYZ. So on this sheet here, you can see that there's the use of the left brain, which is the rational words, the rational side, and then there's the right brain, which is really the emotional words. So circled there, you can see all the different words and how they kind of compare to their counterpart. And this is taken from the web copy that sells. So this is just a reference that I'll also reference later. And then lastly, just as important as that emotion is the ability to actually persuade and captivate people with the words that you choose. So really this is a term of fascination, is how do you persuade, how do you captivate? And so Sally Hogshead, with that photo there, that's actually a book that she's published. She's really identified what triggers and what fascinates people, and how you can actually, as a business and as a person, how can you actually put these triggers to use. So I'm going to go through here pretty quick, just the 7 triggers that she really has identified. And this is not really a deep study. This is not, copywriting 2.201. But it is something that's really important. So I would star this, I would write down this book, I would go ahead and check it out, purchase it, something to really go back to. So as we're getting into what fascinates us, what are the different triggers, please really wrap your head around how you can use this in your copywriting. So the first trigger that she's identified, this is lust. So this is why we're actually seduced by this anticipation of pleasure and really what our desires are. The second fascination trigger, this is mystique. So why are we intrigued by these unanswered questions and really kind of curiosity? So an example here would be Coca-Cola, their secret ingredient. Third one is alarm. So this is why we take the threat of negative consequences. And this is why procrastination and deadlines, these things alarm us. The fourth trigger is prestige. And this is why we fixate on symbols of rank and respect. So example here is the pink Mary Kay Cadillac that so many people know of. Another example here for prestige is zip codes and why where we live matters. Fifth is power. So this is why we focus on the people and things that control us. The sixth trigger is vice. So why we're actually tempted by this forbidden fruit. An example here is prohibition. And then the seventh trigger, the last one, is trust. So this is why we're loyal to reliable options. And ultimately, this is where people can be really authentic. And then what is familiar to us, we trust naturally. So I went through those pretty quick, but just note that these are the different fascination triggers. And fascination is really probably one of the most powerful ways to influence the decision making. So make no mistake, you really need to use this in your web copy or just in your copywriting in general. Okay, so what I wanted to do here, and this is where some interaction is going to happen. We are actually, I gotta get this loaded here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be sharing this link. It's Gary V. If you do not know him, Gary Vaynerchuk, he is a very big influencer and really got his start in marketing. And so what I wanted to do is show a video. And because I can't actually screen share and show the video with the right sound, I have sent the video link in the chat feature. And so what I want you guys all to do at home right now is if you can click on that link, it should pop up, and then you'll be able to actually watch his video. So the video itself, it's about 2 minutes. And when you'll come back, just if you can answer these different questions. So I'm gonna give you guys about 2 minutes here. Please let me know that this is working, that you can click on the link too. Okay, thanks, Grayson. Okay, so I'll put a timer here just so I know when to check back on you guys, but please click on that link and watch this video if you haven't already. Okay, so it looks like a majority of you guys are wrapping up on that video. I know a few of you on the phone, you might not have been able to access that link, but I'll be sure to send that to you guys after this. And so hopefully you guys can see my screen here, my slides, but after watching that video, I kind of want to walk through 4 questions. And so the first one is, who is the audience? Who do you believe this video is targeting? The second one is, what is Gary Vee all about? What is his why? And then third question, what fascination triggers are used in the video? And the last question, what is the call to action? So I will write these out in our chat as well. But this is where I would love your guys' feedback and interaction. So if you can, start typing, start answering some of these questions, and I will share to everyone also like what I considered when I watched this video. So the questions I just posted in the chat, hopefully you guys are able to see that there. So the video itself, it's about 2.5 minutes if you guys were all able to watch it. And something that's really kind of fascinating to me, I know a little bit about Gary Vaynerchuk, and I've seen, a lot of the different stuff that he's posted. And to me, it becomes really clear who his target audience is. And so I will kind of go through what I believe, but I'm really curious, what did you guys think when you guys were watching? Who was that target audience? Who was the avatar? So I'm going to let some answers come in here. So from locally, which is Nicholas, he said the audience, the person is the person who is contemplating pursuing something, but they're scared. It could be from judgment, internally, etc. I'll wait to have a few more answers come in. So from John, he posted his audience is people that want something different out of their life. This is most likely an entrepreneur. Chris said the same thing, potential entrepreneurs. Looks like Rebecca, someone who is letting fear stand in their way of doing something. Dylan said for people who have built a life that maybe they're not currently happy with, they have these bills, mortgage, debt. So I think all of these are really great, kind of digging into who that audience is. And so when I went through Gary Vaynerchuk's Instagram, something that just immediately stood out to me is a lot of his message is to 20 and 30-year-olds. And it happens to be actually very targeted. You see a lot of men who are kind of in these different points of life where they are looking for it to get altered. They're looking to reinvent themselves. And so while I know this video, I think it can captivate a lot of us. We don't have to be a 20 or 30 something, because something that Gary really did use, and it's one of the questions that I brought up, is what fascination triggers are being used in this video. And something to me that stands out, particularly in the last line of the video, is he says, nobody was thrilled that they played it safe. And this is a huge alarm trigger. So this is basically showing the point that, why we can take this threat of such a negative consequence. So we can play it safe, but he shows us throughout that whole video what it looks like if you do play it safe. And his whole why and why he actually does it is because he doesn't want anyone to live with regret. So something that you guys can all do, I'm not gonna make you do it right now, is that anytime you watch a video, particularly if it's on YouTube, there's actually a way to download the whole script. So you can therefore see the exact copy of what that person, the creator of the video, used. And so I did that. Unfortunately, with Instagram video, it doesn't allow you to create and download the script. So if you guys are interested, after this, I can actually send you, I was able to type up that whole 2.5 minute video. And as you can see on my slides here, I just started with the main intro and what I call the subheader, just so you guys can get some different examples, is that we're talking a lot about written word, but copy can also be used online and in a video. And so I'm showing you guys this here as he started with his video, what are we doing here? And he really poses that question hard. And so this is where you could say, this is the header, this is the intro. Then he goes right into, you've won the 400 trillion to 1 lottery of being a human being. Do you really want to live with regret? So that is what I would call his subheader. And it goes on as you can watch the video with that closing, what we've already talked about, how it's really a closing, it's a trigger to alarm us all into taking some sort of action to how we can change our lives and be happier. In the actual Instagram preview copy, which you can see in that link that I sent you, something to know is at the very end, his call to action is pretty simple. It's just to tag someone who needs this. It's to share this. So he's trying to obviously build his following, his list. Gary Vee does a great job through video. So if you're ever looking for someone to study video, video marketing, I would definitely watch and really study what he does. So we're gonna move on here, but that was just an example. I will definitely be sharing my different notes and also that script with you guys after this webinar, if you guys are interested in kind of really digesting what was all said. But to keep moving on, I really want to talk about how really there is this long and short of copy. And a lot of questions can be asked, well, how long should copy actually be? And when it comes to direct marketing, the more you actually tell, the more you sell. So this last week, I was on a webinar that was all around drip marketing campaigns. And the person, the entrepreneur that was talking and sharing, she was actually saying that, the landing pages that she's created, the ones that are the most effective, that draw the sale, are the ones that actually have a lot of copy on them. So just keep that in mind. It kind of goes against what we're told a lot of times in keeping things short. But when you're actually writing copy, whether that's for a sales letter, whether that's for your landing page, whether that's a video, it's okay to actually be long and talking and telling the story. So counter to that is that you want to use short words, you want to use short sentences and short paragraphs when you're actually writing the copy. So I like to say that your word choice, it should be understandable to a 5th grader. And you want to keep 75% of your words 5 letters or less. And so this really matters. As humans, I think we have this great ability to skim. And so in order to stop skimming, you really do want to help your reader by shortening your sentences, shortening your words, and really going back to using emotional words. You don't want to get into any scientific jargon, any acronyms. You want people to understand right away. And that even goes for people that are working on more technological ideas or businesses. You still have to write so that a 5th grader understands. Okay, so now this is the fun part of this webinar. We are actually going to have one of our regular participants, Nicholas Hanstead. He is going to jump online here. So I'm going to shift things a little bit and turn off the screen share. So Nicholas, if you are on, which I hope you are, if you can open up your video and then also unmute yourself. Okay, I can see you.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, so Nicholas is working on a startup, a business called Locally. And Nicholas, if you can actually just share first who you are and then what you're doing with Locally, what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Nicholas Hanstead. I actually graduated from Iowa State with a degree in marketing this past fall. And since then, and actually before I graduated as well, I've been working on a business concept that I call Locally. And to the consuming world, Locally is really twofold. So we produce a TV show that we go around the country and we tell the stories of businesses that what we call create culinary treasures. So these are small businesses who put their every single day into creating these products. And we believe that their stories are really incredible and that they're worthy to share with the world. So at a high level, we're a media company that creates these really high quality videos. And then what we do is after we meet with these companies, we provide an opportunity to purchase their products, what we call a subscription box that we call the local basket. So that's very, very high level, but that's what we are to the consuming world. Does that sound all right, Diana?
Yeah, it sounds great. So we are currently doing a hot seat. So this is a really unique opportunity where Nicholas is on the hot seat, and it's really going to allow him, one, to get everyone's feedback on what he's working on. So Nick, if you can actually just share, first off, what it is, what feedback you want. I'm going to post your website link, and then I'll actually bring up your website and we can walk through some of this too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the number one thing that we're focused on right now is market research. So we just launched a brand new website that has been in development for quite some time. And actually, it's just the landing page. We've created one landing page with the sole purpose of lead generation and brand awareness. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll be posting teaser videos to hopefully engage people to watch them, number one, but then we want them to click on our website and then sign up for our mailing list. And we would like to build up our mailing list over the next couple of weeks and the next couple of months before we actually do a full-on launch, before we distribute our first TV show episode along with our first box.
Okay.
And so any and all feedback is wanted right now. Yeah, I mean, it's full market research mode right now before we actually put any money into pushing out our content. So everything we're doing currently is organically through connections and just through other people as well. So.
Okay, awesome. So you already kind of answered, when we were originally talking about the basics, we talked about what is your objective. So for you just said it right away. You're doing a landing page, you want lead generation, and you really ultimately want them to sign up for your mailing list so you can curate a bunch of content later. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
So then second piece is, who is your target audience?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is something I would almost say I struggled with a little bit as I've been developing this, because we kind of serve two audiences. So the main avatar that I've been serving since day one with this business is the businesses that we work with, which in avatar terms, we call them farmer browns. These are small businesses who have an incredible story, number one, but two, they have a desire to reach new customers who aren't in their local radius from where they're actually from. And I know very well who they are, what their pain points are, and how we can help them. But the other side of our business is we have to sell these boxes, and we need people to want to consume our content that we're creating. And so that's actually one of our main focuses right now, is actually developing the avatar of the customers. So that's one of the big pieces we're working on as we're doing this lead generation. So they're kind of going hand in hand with one another.
Okay, awesome. So I think that's going to help a lot of people who are listening and watching understand, one, what's your objective, what's your target audience, and then what it is locally actually does, which you have described and you talked about. So what I'm going to do right now, this is kind of where you get to be on the hot seat, is I'm going to pull up your website. If people are not yet on it, there is a link in the actual chat, but let me pull this up and let's see. I think there is a way to do this. So Nicholas, can you see your website right now?
I can, yep.
Okay, perfect. So after hearing kind of what Nicholas just said, I want everyone to really look at his website, because we are talking about copywriting. First, we need to decide, is Nicholas showing what the problem is? So I don't know, Nicholas, if you have any first thoughts yet after kind of hearing some of the content in the webinar, but what do you believe, what are you actually showing on this first half? How are you showing there's a problem?
Sure. So looking at it and after listening, I'm not sure that we're necessarily showing there's a problem. And I think what we are focusing on is our solution. And so based off the feedback or the webinar we just talked about, we could curate this maybe a little better to highlight that problem. But specifically, I guess some of the ways we do try to highlight the problem is, one, hard to find. So those specific words right there, we're telling people that, these are businesses that ultimately you're not going to find unless you find them through us.
Yep.
We do the work to go out and find these businesses, and we provide you the opportunity to hear their story and buy their products. So that's the problem we're solving. That I guess those words hard to find are what we're hitting on to kind of resonate with the consuming world.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with you. So I would even say you could dial up this problem, and your video behind it, it so beautifully shows, there's an image where there's all these white tents. And even when you're at a farmer's market and you're trying to find your vendor, if you don't know where they're actually at, they're very hard to find because there's 100 different white tents. And how do you actually find them? What if they moved? What if they're always moving different weeks? So I think you could even play up like the hard to find, there's a lack of access. And I mean, right there, you could tell the story of 100 tents. And here we're trying to help you find, the one tent. So in the first half of the website, which is all I'm really going to focus on right now, what would you say your offer is?
Say that again. I didn't hear that last part.
Yeah, no problem. So what is your offer? What are you showcasing right now on the website?
Yeah, so our current offer the only offering we have right now is to sign up for our mailing list. And that's why we have the box around sign up. And then that's what we're trying to hit hard here on the top half. And then when you hit learn more, all that's going to allow you to do is go further down the page. So we're trying to provide a little bit more of an experience to our landing page. So that should scroll down to the local basket. You must be on our older version of the website. Because this has been updated since then. But it's all right. It's pretty similar. And then our goal here now is you read about what we're going to offer here through the local basket, and that the new words underneath say coming soon. So if anybody else is on it, it should show them that. But then we want you to watch this video here where that pizza cutout is.
Okay. Awesome. And so I'm not going to click on it just because the video and audio hasn't been working when I show it. I will allow people to do that at home to check out later. And so one thing I will note under your local basket, at least what I can see, I'm not sure if this has changed, is that it is very wordy and your sentences happen to be pretty lengthy. So even on that start where it has we're on a journey, that can be a sentence in itself right there. So I would really take the chance and kind of edit through this to write for more punchy sentences and word choice as well.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, the whole second half of that paragraph has been deleted on the updated version.
Bad. Cool. And we've already hit it. I'm scrolling back up, but your call to action, it's very apparent. You have a box, sign up, and also learn more. So kudos, you definitely have call to action. And you might play around with your call to action because learn more is not that emotionally, enticing. So that's where you could definitely do a lot of different testing around what people actually gravitate to make them click, to make them sign up.
Right.
Cool. So that's kind of really what I wanted to go through. Nicholas, I know you have a Google form that you mentioned that people can provide some feedback. So
I'm going to drop that in the chat right now.
Perfect.
Oh, am I still on? Okay, I lost my video here. Trying to get my way back. Okay, there we are. Okay, yeah, I'm going to drop that in the chat right now. The link to the Google form. And then if you guys could just go to our website. I guess we kind of already gone through it, but what we're looking for before you fill out this form is one, that you've been through the website, you've watched the video, and then that you have signed up for our email list, because a couple of the questions on that Google form are related to that. We want to know one, did you get the email? And then we want you to watch the video and read through that content. We just want to know that it's working. And then so that's related to that Google form. So yes, please take the time to do that if you do have the time. Be critical, the good, the bad, the ugly. We want to know it all. This is really important to us right now as we're going through this. And then if you're even willing to go one step further, share it with one of your friends or two of your friends and ask them to do the same thing. And then lastly, if you could just follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. It's really big for us right now as we try to push things out slowly here coming forward. So
cool. Well, thank you, Nicholas. So that's kind of all the time we have right now for the hot seat. So I appreciate you jumping on, being a participant. And I also would encourage everyone, you didn't allude to it, but sign up because you have a nice welcome email. You have a great video that goes into who Locally is. And so we weren't able to cover that right now. But if you guys do sign up for Locally, you'll be able to see that and also study and maybe even provide feedback as well to Nicholas. So thank you. Feel free to also share your email as well if you can.
I'll do that right now. Yeah, reach out. You can reach out directly to me if that's how you prefer to give feedback as well, or you just want to talk.
Okay, so
Thanks.
we are going to get back on. Feel free to mute yourself in video. Awesome. So next thing, we have just kind of the last 5 minutes that I really want to cover is, so we've talked a lot about marketing. We talked a lot about copywriting specifically, and I really want to go back to where do you start? And so all of this is not to make you at all intimidated. The greatest thing I think is that you don't need any sort of degree to write copy. You do not need an English degree. So please know that. Secondly is that you need to recognize as an entrepreneur or as even someone working within another company, the value of your actual understanding of the business. It is far reaching over someone who's just looking at your business. So make sure, and feel a little confident that you do know what you're doing and you know probably the most what your business is all about. Third thing that I would really, really advocate is to start creating a swipe file. And this is really anything that you want to go back and use as reference. Fourth is just to start out and write. And then I would avoid being perfectionist. So forget that there's actually the rules of grammar. The great thing with copywriting that's very different than English is that, copy can be 2 words and it might not even actually have any sort of punctuation. So really know that you do not have to be perfect when you're writing copy, but just keep this in mind. So one of the books that I really like going to is How to Steal Like an Artist. So this is a great, awesome reference if you want. And in it, the author, he starts by basically saying that none of us are born as artists. None of us are born as these natural writers. And so what you can do to kind of curve your learning curve is just to start copying. And I mean this by practicing and not plagiarism. So on the right there, you can see, the image of what a good theft is and what a bad theft is. So kind of remember that. But as you're learning and as you're trying to figure out like who to copy, it can be whatever you see. Perhaps it's mail that's gotten sent to you. Perhaps it's something you read, a book. So first figure out who you want to copy. And second, you need to figure out what to copy. And really the whole brainchild behind copying is that you want to steal the thinking behind the style. So more than just writing out the words, you want to go back, rewrite the words, rewrite the sentence, and really study what that means. More about copying, and these are just some helpful tips, is that carry a notebook and pen with you at all times. You never know when you're going to come across something or even what someone might say, and that you could actually go back and reference later. Second thing is you can copy your favorite passages out of a book. I've alluded to this, but just know that you can literally word for word copy and try to understand the writing behind it. Third thing is you can record overheard conversations. And so you might be at a conference, you might be at an event where, with permission, you can record and really grasp what that person is saying, particularly if it's someone that is a really great speaker, you can learn more of that spoken word. And then fourth piece is snapping photos on your phone. So most of us carry our phones at all times, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But just know that at any time, you can take a photo of something that you see and then go back to that for later reference. These are just the tools and references that I want to mention today all around copywriting. So as you can see, there are a lot of different books. These are different books that I have, that I've studied. I would really recommend looking into them. So the first one is The Ultimate Marketing Plan. That's by Dan Kennedy. And really any of the books by Dan Kennedy I would look into. Second book is How to Write Short, as it sounds. And then the last book I really want to go to here is that Fascinate. That is by Sally Hogshead. Really encourage you guys to learn more about those different fascination triggers. Something that I have down here as just a reference is for your swipe file. We've talked about it, but you can have an analog swipe file, which means it's a folder. It's where you put all of your different pieces of paper into, as well as a digital file too. And then writing, what I have recommended here is first, when it comes to copywriting, one of the greatest first things you can do is just read your own copy out loud. And that's going to really help you a lot, deciding, oh, maybe I need to switch this. Maybe this doesn't actually make any sense. And then second one there, I mentioned it, but you can handwrite any great copy. So if you see something you really like, handwrite it and just keep a journal, keep a notebook with any of the different copy that you are handwriting. You can go back to that later. And then the two other pieces there, that's more on the grammar side. So if you are in an organization or a business where you absolutely need to be, grammatically correct, you might want to find or hire a proofreader. And then secondly, there is the Grammarly, which is a AI that really goes in and improves your copy and your communication. Lastly, I just have the copywriters that I look into. So there's David Ogilvy, which he's one of the most well-known copywriters. He is no longer alive, but he is really the Don Draper in that Mad Men. He's who that character really represents. And then my personal favorite is Dan Kennedy. So he is still alive, and I would encourage you guys to look him up as well. So with that, that's really a wrap up of today's copywriting workshop. And so I hope that you found the different copywriting fundamentals important, remembering those 5 questions to answer in your copy, and then particularly the structure and how the headline is so important. Lastly, we talked about emotion and fascination, and this really drives home the point of how you actually can compel your audience, your reader, to take an action. And my last thing really is to offer you guys, if you guys found this valuable, this information, my offer is that we can definitely take a deeper dive into copywriting. We call this Copywriting 201. So if that's something that interests you, just say so in the chat right now. And then we can kind of make a note and really figure out what you guys are looking for, what would be helpful for you as you're starting with your business, or even, trying to look at different markets and creating marketing. So I thank you guys for attending today. I am going to stay on for a bit. I know we're just past our time here. So I, encourage you guys, you can ask any questions, and I will be sending out a follow-up email with some of the information we went over today too. So thank you guys.